Hi, this is video number 239, Withdrawal Warriors Worldwide, a Fellowship. Purpose and Identity. 1. We are an international fellowship of individuals who have chosen to discontinue the use of prescribed psychotropic drugs. 2. Our sole purpose is to support one another, both individually and collectively, as we each travel the road to freedom from the use of prescribed psychotropic drugs and their adverse effects, both while we are taking the drugs and as we withdraw from them. 3. For the purposes of this fellowship, we are not licensed medical doctors, therapists, counselors, psychologists, or licensed in any other medical occupation or profession, nor do we claim to be licensed medical staff with respect to this fellowship. 4. We do not offer medical advice. As such, it is important for each member of this fellowship to be in contact with appropriate medical staff as he or she undertakes the endeavor to discontinue the use of prescribed psychotropic drugs. 5. This fellowship has no opinion concerning the current general practice of prescribing psychotropic drugs or any other social issues. 6. All opinions and information offered in this fellowship will be based on existing, generally accepted information in the literature, personal observation, and personal experience. 7. There are no dues, fees, or any other financial aspect related to this fellowship. Pillars and Truths. 1. Our journey from the discontinuation of prescribed psychotropic drugs through withdrawal to a place of wellness is a process. 2. We are all different. No one else can feel what you feel. Each person goes through and experiences the process in a manner that is unique to him or her. No two individuals experience the process in exactly the same way. We will each have a different story to share when we reach wellness. We will each have different symptoms with different intensities. We will each notice improvement in different ways and at different times. We will each have our own time frame for healing. 3. There is no perfect way to taper from psychotropic drugs. However, under no circumstances is it wise to cold turkey from psychotropic drugs. 4. The brain is continually trying to heal in its own unique way during withdrawal from psychotropic drugs, even though there are times when it feels like no healing is occurring. 5. Even though the myriad of strange, intense symptoms during withdrawal causes us to feel or believe we have developed a mental disorder, we have not. 6. Often the symptoms of withdrawal lead us to fear that we have developed some other empirically diagnosable condition. In such cases, it is best to be checked by a doctor, if only to provide us peace of mind. 7. Currently, the passing of time is the only known way to effect healing from psychotropic drugs, although there is hope that a quicker way to healing will be discovered in the future. As such, withdrawal is a matter of survival until wellness is reached. Anything that helps us to pass time is beneficial. 8. Acceptance that we are in withdrawal and that it will take time is necessary in reaching wellness. Blaming ourselves or others for our current predicament does no good and is counterproductive. It is what it is and it will get better. 9. It is absolutely necessary for us to keep hope alive during the withdrawal process. We need to reach out to anything or anyone to maintain hope. 10. It is important for us to seek positive, hopeful input from wherever we can find it. Places of negativity and confrontation of any sort should be avoided. 11. We must be careful of what we read and believe. It is important to realize that nearly everyone in the withdrawal forums and Facebook groups is also in withdrawal. They are also afraid and have cognitive issues. For this reason, harmful misinformation and fear abound. In withdrawal, the power of suggestion is enormous. And 12, all of the bizarre, painful, fearful thoughts and feelings we have in withdrawal are distortions caused by the withdrawal itself and have no place in reality. Okay, the promises. These promises are primarily from Alcoholics Anonymous, pages 83 and 84, with slight modification. 1. If we painstakingly adhere to these pillars and truths, we will each make it to the place of wellness and will be amazed when we get there. 2. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. 3. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. 4. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. 5. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. 6. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. 7. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. 8. Self-seeking will slip away. 9. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. 10. fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. 11. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. 12. We will realize that God has done for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They will always materialize as we reach wellness. Okay, I didn't get any emails or Facebook messages with specific questions or anything, but there are a few things I want to talk about though. I went for the newspaper this morning. I took my little walk for the newspaper. It's the first time I've done that in a while. It was kind of interesting. Very nice day outside. Nice peaceful walk. On the way back, I was looking at the buildings because we've lived here quite some time, for 31 years in this particular house in this development. And I was kind of reflecting on things. I was looking, the way I walked to the grocery store, to the Giant, there's a lot of buildings, a lot of office buildings that were not there. There were no buildings over there when we moved here a long time ago. And I was thinking about these office buildings and how things have changed and so forth, and how I've actually lived here for 31 years, which is amazing. And then I thought about, well, I wonder how many places I lived in the 32 years before these 31. And then I started like listing them on my way home, and I think of like several, and then I kind of like lose track, and then like later I think of another 2 or 3 or 4, and so I came home and I thought, well, I'll write them down. I'll write some of them down and see how many I can actually recall. So in the first 32 years of my life, I lived in at least 30 different places. 30. That's incredible. That's incredible. And my wife has always been, well, gee, you've lived in so many places. 30 at least. It's no wonder I messed up. Right, I got messed up and got into the drinking and all that. We never stayed in one place for very long. There was never any stability really for the longest time until like there was a certain point in my life where my life became more stable. I wasn't constantly moving around, but I don't know. It explains a lot to me about my life and things that have happened, like the drinking and the like drugs and all that stuff. And I'm amazed I got into this really good place. I am in such an incredibly good place now. The best I've ever been in my life. It's just, maybe I had to move around all those times for this to be so good. I don't know. Anyway, let me see the vincas. My vincas, I'm noticing there are cutworms. There must be cutworms getting to them at night. And the funny thing is about cutworms, they're only active at night, so you don't actually get to see them. But I noticed some of the leaves are like cut straight across, and some of the plants, I did put 4, we had 4 left over from the ones that were bought at the nursery. I put them out on the island, just 4, and they got pretty much all cut up. I think it was the cutworms. So I'm going to have to probably put some 7 dust down tonight, or powder, like before it gets dark. That'll do them, man. That's a relatively, that's not a real toxic kind of pesticides. I'll put that out. That does work, I know. It's good for borers too. There are some other things that are much better for borers, but okay, the vincas that I put as seeds out at the island, they're coming up in little clumps, like here and there. It's going to be cool, I think. You can tell like they're coming up in different places. Some must have been a little covered more, a little bit more than the others, so they're coming up now too, and it could be pretty cool looking once they start getting a little bit bigger. But I'm noticing little pods of green here and there, so that's going to be cool. Last night, watched some of the Penguins game. They lost again. I think it was 4-1. Outplayed again. They did have a lot of scoring chances, but they only got one in there. Their goalie Rene he's pretty good. He was on last night, so that's tied 2-2. They play again Thursday. I watched the NCAA women's softball. It's the first game of the series. It's like the final championship series. Oklahoma and Florida. I was watching that. It was like really good game. They got to the bottom of the 7th, and Florida scored and tied it up. And it went into extra innings, not overtime. Extra innings. I watched until like the end of 16 innings. It was almost midnight. I thought, I'm going to bed. So in the 17th inning, apparently you could tell the pitchers, like, they're starting to get tired. they only have a certain number of pitchers, and they throw that ball hard. So 17th inning, Oklahoma won. I think they scored 3, and then Florida scored 1, and game over. So that was amazing. 17 innings. See, tonight, Senators are playing tonight. I'm thinking about going to that. It depends on whether my grandson needs picked up from the bus stop or not. His father's been getting home early and picking him up. If we have to pick him up tonight, then there will be no game. If we don't, might go to a Senators game, have my club seats, sit behind home plate there, just enjoy the evening. It's really, really nice. I think my daughter, she works at it's an accounting firm. She's a CPA. She, every so often, she has to do, I guess it's called hospitality. What they do, I think, is they rent or have a hospitality suite at the ballpark where they have like clients come in and watch a game and that, and they can eat and all that. So she's going to be there tonight. Apparently, that's right up from us. Like our seats are right behind home plate. Those are usually higher up, and I think they can actually sit inside and look out the window. I don't know. So maybe I'll get to go to the game tonight and sit and talk to my daughter a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, let me see how much time I have here. Okay, 11 minutes. I want to talk about, let's see, I labeled these two things, acceptance and symptoms. Okay, acceptance, okay, we have a pillar in truth, acceptance. I think it's number, let me look here. It's number 8. Acceptance that we are in withdrawal and that it will take time is necessary in reaching wellness. I didn't put that there for no reason. That's true. Like, you have to accept. Even though we're worried about like having other kinds of things wrong with us, oh, this could be this, that, or the other, when you're in benzo withdrawal, you have to at least accept, I'm in benzo withdrawal. It can take a long time. It can take a short time. It can take a long time. If there are other things involved, then I will probably have to deal with them later. Like if I have other kinds of things that it could possibly be that my brain's telling me you can get those checked out later. Or see, a lot of those things they are more syndromes than actual like diseases or disorders. And I've talked about like the syndromes before, like chronic fatigue syndrome, and there's some other ones too. Postural orthostatic, that thing or whatever, or you stand up and your blood pressure's low and this and that, and you pass out. And those are all, they're not necessarily diseases and disorders in of themselves. They are symptoms of something that's wrong. So you can't, it's not like a lot of those things you're going to have in withdrawal. You're going to have those symptoms. But acceptance, I'll get back to acceptance here. Benzo withdrawal, you're in benzo withdrawal. And that's like, not everybody's on benzos who listens to this. Some are in withdrawal from other things like antidepressants. Anyway, I was on, I went on the Facebook today, and I was on the, it was my news feed. Okay, and I saw something there from a couple people. Someone who actually lived in this area a number of years ago. She was actually the very first person after I got well that I actually went to visit, who was in really bad withdrawal, benzo withdrawal. And she had a certain history. She had been on like an antidepressant, and I guess like the effects from that, and then they put her on a benzo, and she went into a withdrawal and that. And anyway, she had posted something. Let me see what it was. She's very much into like finding the problem. She has poo-pooed that this is benzo withdrawal. She apparently does not believe it can possibly last this long. So she's one of those people like, I'm going to go get every test under the sun, and even some that like no one's ever heard of and probably have no relevance to science or medicine or anything. So she searches and searches and searches for all these things, she supposedly had this one thing. I won't actually specifically mention it. And so she was in distress, so I messaged her on Facebook, and she kind of like basically told me to get lost, that she's sick of people saying, well, you blame everything on benzo withdrawal, and she's going to the doctor all the time, and they're trying all these things. She has different levels checked. Her norepinephrine is like sky high. Her glycine is sky high. The doctor told her she's allergic to serotonin and norepinephrine and blah, 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 all these other things too. And it's just, doesn't make any sense. Like serotonin and norepinephrine, your body synthesizes that. You can't, if you're allergic to it, you're probably not going to live, which makes no sense. Her glycine level is high. She wanted to know, but what's glycine? What? I've never heard of it. Well, that's one of the That's the second most prevalent inhibitory neurotransmitter in your body. It's very, very important. If it's so sky high, like that should calm her down. So that, but the point here is more, and I speak as a scientist here. I'm not a doctor. I mean, I told you that over and over, but I speak as a scientist, someone who, like, I like logic and rationale. Like, when I think of things, I like to justify certain conclusions I come up with. When you're doing this kind of stuff, like you're checking for these different levels of things in your body, you need standard ranges that represent what we will call normal, okay? So that you have something to compare these to. And those ranges do not exist for a lot of these things. Like, people have their neurotransmitters checked in, it could be their blood, their urine, their saliva, different body fluids, but there is no standard to check it against. And depending on which fluid you have it checked in, they're all going to be different. When the sample was taken, as far as like when you ate, when there's been stress in your life or not, all like cortisol and all of these things that people have checked, they don't, I mean, you can measure them, but they don't, if you don't have anything to compare it to, it's meaningless. But a lot of doctors, especially the naturopaths, and I have my own opinion about that and naturopathy, but that's neither here nor there. Like, the relevance of what a lot of these people do, there's no, I mean, you can check all these things, but if there's nothing to compare anything to, then it doesn't, I don't know, you can't. But the basic problem in this, in benzo withdrawal, is, and I've talked about this many times, nobody knows exactly what benzos and some of these other psych drugs have done to us. And a lot of doctors don't even believe that, like, what has happened to us has happened to us. So they tend to, I call it, chase other rabbits. Okay, they don't, well, it can't be benzo withdrawal. That's ludicrous. That can't be what's wrong. So based on the symptoms of withdrawal and a lot of times phantom levels of these other things that are actually synthesized in the body, they come up with these other things like, well, you need to take this supplement or this or this or these amino acids, and there is no rhyme or reason for it. You can't, I will never be convinced of it. We end up taking all kinds of other things, and they're basically shot in the dark therapies. I would call it that. It's a shot in the dark. Nobody understands what's going on. Nobody knows exactly. We know down regulation of GABA receptors. That's how it begins, but I think there's a whole lot more going on. But we don't, if you don't know the cause, how can you actually find a therapy or something that will end it or reverse it or at least make it better? So we look at the symptoms and we give some other diagnosis. Okay, we're diagnosing based solely on symptoms because there's nothing else to do. And I see people, they have all these symptoms and they get these different diagnoses and they're given different drugs, whether it's a supplement or an actual anthropogenic substance, and it doesn't help, and a lot of times it hurts. But it's just disturbing. Like, this particular individual, she just blew me off and said, it's not benzo withdrawal. Why can't you people, she said, I'm sick of people telling me it's all benzo withdrawal when I know it's not, when it's got to be something else. I've been told it's something else. And I just, okay, whatever. I'm not going to get in an argument with it. And there was another post this morning, very similar kind of post about hormonal levels. Had my hormonal levels checked. I was feeling really good. They gave me hormonal therapy supplements, and now it's not working anymore. And again, like, if you're in benzo withdrawal, the withdrawal affects your endocrine system. I mean, that's big time. It does. You know, all of the hormones and the hormones and so forth, all of the things that are synthesized and transmitted from the endocrine system, all of the different glands, they are all part and parcel affected by the nervous system. So you're going to have that. They are not the actual cause. It's like the cause and the effect. They are the effect. They are not the cause. And I just see this over and over and over. It's just, it is disturbing. I know in withdrawal we're afraid, but you have to at least accept, yeah, this is benzo withdrawal. Nobody really gets the whole picture here. So how can you expect them to come up with some really well thought out therapy or treatment when they actually don't even know the whole picture? They don't have the whole picture. That's the major problem here. that is it. And I know the GABAergic system is affected, and I've seen both, like, well, you're not producing enough GABA, like because of the one of the enzymes in that process going from glutamate to GABA, like there's this one enzyme you need, and that's probably been messed up somehow. But then also the GABA neuroreceptors, and that's probably true. But I think there's more that goes on than after that. But we just, we get symptoms, and we start checking different things and thinking, well, this is what the problem is, when it's actually the effect. It's not the cause. It's whatever the cause was made this happen. And a lot of times it's the endocrine system. Okay, symptoms. I want to talk about symptoms a little bit in a very general sort of way. We seem to, when we have symptoms, we get all hung up on their names, okay? And especially certain ones, we're worried about, like, is this, like, I'm feeling like this is happening to me. What is the name of this symptom? And then you look that symptom up, and then you find some something some doctor said, like, well, that's permanent. That never goes away. And the biggie is akathisia, of course. Like, a lot of doctors will say, well, that's permanent. There is really no basis for that. I've seen it go away, and lots of people I had, it went away. But that's just one example. Let me see. There are a lot of symptoms in withdrawal, and I think many times there's not a name for them because they're all kind of different. They're all a little different from the things that you find in the literature. So you can't, it is what it is. It's like, you have these symptoms, you feel this way, this is what's happening. It doesn't really matter what the name of it is. So you can't expect, like, doctors they're not going to understand, well, like, the etiology of it, what caused this, a name doesn't make it, doesn't make it permanent. It doesn't make it something that you can or can't treat. It's just a name. And what brought me to this particular subject? Last night, a lady that has been watching the videos for some time, she sent me a couple videos of it's like this movement in her legs, where they're like just kind of like moving, like, by themselves, not voluntarily so much, although she can stop them. And it seems to happen a lot more like when she's under stress or has anxiety and that, and she can make it stop. And she was like, is this akathisia? Or, and to me it looks more like akathisia, sort of a combination of akathisia, tardive dyskinesia, or dyskinesia, however you want to say it, twitching, different kinds of movement kind of symptoms. And the onset is, like, I think she said, with stress and some anxiety and that. She's got some stressful stuff going on. She has to do a move here soon. So my feeling is it's probably something that the way it all comes together and is described and the way it feels is it's probably germane only to benzo withdrawal, probably nothing else. So it's probably not even a classified kind of symptom that has a word even associated with it. And it is one that I have seen eventually fade. I've seen lots of people with it. I've seen people in bed, just like their whole body is doing that. Way back when I was still sick, I saw one of those. It freaked me out completely. But one symptom, or what disorder, or whatever they call it, doctors call this, the medical community, tardive dyskinesia. Okay, I'll talk about that one, because a lot of doctors will tell you that's permanent. That never, ever goes away. Okay, now tardive dyskinesia, mostly, when you see it in the literature, they almost always connect it with neuroleptics that are given for schizophrenia and psychotic kinds of things. And they say that's, if you start getting this, it's irreversible. It doesn't, which is not true. That's not true. My wife, I've talked about my wife. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia, like, way back in the 80s. Okay, at that time she took, the first neuroleptic they put her on was Haldol, and then Mellaril. And after time, she took the Mellaril for a few years, and she started in her foot, one of her feet. It would start just, she wouldn't even be thinking about it. It would just, I would notice this, her foot would just be moving, just like twitching around and moving, and she didn't even know it. She was just kind of doing that, and that's tardive dyskinesia. That's what that was. So I'm thinking like, well, what is this? What? And she went to the doctor, and he said, well, how about we put you on something else, like one of the newer neuroleptics, Zyprexa. And so he did. Okay, and that went away. Okay, now as she's been on the Zyprexa for, wow, it's been 30. It's been about close to 30 years. She has every now and then that it will kind of return a little bit in her hand mostly. Like it'll just start to like a tremor kind of thing. And a few years back during the fall, I think it was a summer. It was a summer. She did actually come off of the Zyprexa, so we thought, well, let's give it a shot, see what happens. And that went away. It went away, but then her symptoms, all the paranoia and the anxiety and the insomnia and like all of the mess that is like whatever this is that she has schizophrenia or whatever, they all came back. It was not a withdrawal. They all came back. I mean, we've tried a number of times to get her off of this, and it just gets it's just horrible. She's tortured, like mentally tortured. So anyway, every time that this has happened, where she gets these like tremor things, it's TD, tardive dyskinesia. She'll come off, and it will stop. It's reversible. It stops. So you can't. Maybe some people get it so incredibly bad that it seems like it's permanent, but you can't just like put something in a box and say, absolutely, this is it, this is the way it is, because it's not true. It's simply not true. I've seen just with my own wife, yeah, she had this a number of times, and then it does stop. It will stop. So it's just sad that we get these different, and especially when you talk about akathisia and tardive dyskinesia, you start freaking out because the doctors will say, well, that's permanent, that's never, or you listen to like some of these psychiatrists who they've kind of taken the other side, like they're like anti-drugs. They'll say, well, this is permanent and this is permanent, and like this permanent brain damage, and like they don't know that. They can't possibly know that. Nobody knows exactly what has happened, so how can you even come up with any sort of absolute statement like that? You can't do it. That's not science. That's not science. That's not medicine. That's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know. And they're trying to get people to be aware that like these drugs they can harm you. They do have harmful side effects, but that's not the way to do it, because it's almost like turning your back for no good reason on the people who are currently in the mix, suffering from these things. It's just not fair. So anyway, I want to talk about that a little bit. The symptoms, what they represent actually, like in benzo withdrawal, like nobody knows what's going on, and it's just like in the first thing I talked about, the acceptance. So you can't say with absolute certainty this is the way it is. You're going to have this symptom forever. That's not, because it's not true. This is not true. There's no way to prove it. It can go on for a really long time in some people, but you can't make that statement with any, and back it up with any kind of science, because it's not there. So anyway, I just want to talk about those two things. Acceptance that there is a benzo withdrawal. It can last a long time. This particular lady, she just well, I know it's not benzo withdrawal. It's got to be something else. The doctor told me this, and this. Okay, and like she's just having every test under the sun and trying all kinds of different things, and like that's just sad. It's sad. But I mean, it is what it is. We all look at it differently. We all think there's a fix. That there is a fix, and like honestly, like the pillars and truths. Right now, time is the answer. That's all. Right now, that's all there is. And to ignore that, like to just say offhand, like it's not benzo withdrawal, it's something else. That maybe that's wishful thinking. I don't know. But anyway, you have to accept. I'm in benzo withdrawal. It can take a while, and if you're worried about like having something else when your withdrawal is over, you can have that checked out. You can. But I just want to speak to those two things. Got my 29 minutes here. My throat's getting a little sore here. Hope a cold's not coming back. So I'm heading to Syracuse Thursday. I don't need a cold. I did look at the forecast. It looks like the weather up there is going to be pretty decent now. So they changed the forecast. So hopefully this forecast is better than the last forecast. I don't know. We'll see. Guess we won't know until we get there. So anyway, that's what I got for now. Not sure if I'll be going to the ball game tonight or not. I'd kind of like to, but in some ways, might be nice to stay home too. I'm not sure. I would like to go to the game. Like it's always fun to sit there and just relax. Anyway, so I'll let you go here now. As always, I'm right here, and I will be right here. Bye-bye.